Have you ever caught yourself using that phrase that just isn't really yours? Or maybe questioning whether your words and actions reflect what you actually think and feel. It might be a slang term your coworker uses, or maybe a certain way of punctuating an email that you picked up from a YouTube tutorial. Or maybe you find yourself craving some trend that seems to be everywhere on your social media feeds lately. It's a really strange, unsettling feeling. That moment of realization when you recognize that a piece of your personality might actually be borrowed. There's a small psychological theft that's happening every time you interact with society. It's not stealing your wallet, it's stealing your authenticity and replacing it with a cultural script. We've become masters of social performance. We're incredibly skilled at mistaking unspoken standards for our genuine self-worth. We think we're making choices, but often we're just following a blueprint that was drawn up long before we even entered the room. Today I want to talk about something called the Mimetic Blueprint. It's the invisible framework that shapes our desires, our tastes, and our identities. Understanding how it works, it's a form of imitation, and understanding it is the only way to really escape the endless cycle of endless imitation and finally discover who you are beneath all that noise. It starts a lot smaller than identity. It starts with the body. Have you ever sat across from a friend for a long time in an extended conversation and realized halfway through the conversation that you've unconsciously adopted their posture? Your shoulders are slumped just like theirs. Your hands resting on the table exactly like theirs. This is basic mimicry, a biological tool that's used to build rapport and social cohesion. It's kind of how we say, I'm like you, I'm safe. But as we move from the physical gestures into the realm of thought and taste, things get a lot more complicated. The process has really been supercharged by algorithms that don't just suggest products, they suggest souls. We're fed a singular, hyper-polished aesthetic of what success and what happiness look like. It's no longer just about imitating your neighbor either. It's about imitating a version of reality that's been optimized by an algorithm. And this leads to a really uncomfortable question. When you say, I love this, or I can't stand that, are you actually expressing an original preference? Or are you just reacting to the immediate social circle around you? Or worse, the algorithm that's recommending and nudging your taste, and it's been going on for months. Are we developing our authentic selves, or are we just being programmed? To understand why we do this, we have to look at the architecture of what philosophers call mimetic desire. The core idea is pretty simple. We don't actually know what we want. We don't wake up with a list of innate desires. Instead, we learn to want what we want by watching others compete for it. Think about your reference groups, the people you look up to, the peers that you respect. When you see someone in that group striving for something, or adopting a certain lifestyle, or even just expressing an opinion, they're essentially acting as a compass for your own desires. They aren't showing you what's possible. They're showing you where to direct your desires. And this brings us to the concept of the model. The model is someone who possesses a certain amount of prestige or perceived authenticity. Why do advertisers like to use celebrity endorsements? They're models. When the model endorses a lifestyle, like a specific political view or a high intensity fitness regimen, they create an artificial value for that lifestyle in our minds. We begin to chase things not because they inherently satisfy us, but because we want to occupy that space that the model has validated for us. And here's where it gets really messy. Social media has effectively turned every single person in your digital orbit into a potential rival. In the past, you might have compared yourself to the 10 people in your immediate neighborhood. Now, you're comparing your behind the scenes footage with the highly curated highlight reels of millions of people. The line between inspiration, which expands the self, and envy, which shrinks the self, has become almost impossible to see. We aren't just looking for role models anymore. We're caught in a constant subconscious competition for symbols of status that never had anything to do with our own choices. The internal pressure eventually manifests externally. We move from merely describing our desires to performing an identity that meets collective expectations. We've all felt the exhaustion of personal branding. Even if you don't call yourself a brand, you're likely managing one. You curate your LinkedIn, your Instagram, and even the way you present yourself in person. It's an always-on state of being where you're constantly auditing your outward projection to ensure that it aligns with some group norm. This creates something called the echo effect. It's that moment where you hear a trending opinion, maybe about a movie or a political movement or even a social trend. And instead of processing it through your own critical lens, you find yourself repeating it. Why? Because repeating the echo is safe. Expressing a genuine, perhaps and maybe even an unpopular conviction is risky. It threatens your standing in the tribe. So we adopt the correct opinions to signal belonging rather than expressing what we actually think. We become echoes of an echo, losing our original voice in the process of trying to ensure that we're heard by the right people. So where does this leave us? If much of our identity is a collection of borrowed pieces, is there any real us left? And the answer is yes. But finding that us requires an internal audit. And honestly, it's not comfortable. It's kind of like performing surgery on your own psyche. The first step in dismantling the Mimetic Blueprint is to identify which of your goals were inherited rather than chosen. Ask yourself, if I could never tell anyone about this achievement, would I still want it? If the answer is no, you aren't pursuing a goal. You're pursuing a signal. The second step is to look for moments of pure interest. These are the activities and thoughts that exist entirely outside of social validation or digital metrics. It's the hobby that you do in solitude. It's the topic that you research late at night that has zero clout potential. It's the thing that makes you lose track of time, where there's no camera, no audience, and no way to turn it into a post. This process involves a lot of friction. When you start shredding the layers of borrowed identity, you'll feel a sense of loss. You might feel less connected to certain groups. You might feel more exposed. There's an inevitable discomfort that occurs when you stop mirroring the crowd and start standing in your own light. The crowd tends to push back against anyone who refuses to echo. The ultimate goal here isn't to become a hermit or a total nonconformist just for the sake of being difficult. That's just another performance. The rebel persona is as much of a script as the influencer persona. The real goal is agency. It's about moving from a state of passive reflection to one of conscious contribution. It's about building a lifestyle on internal resonance rather than on external pressure. Imagine a life where your tastes, your values, and your actions are an intentional response to the world rather than just a reaction to it. The next time you feel that sudden urge to buy something, or say something, or be someone, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, is this my voice, or is this an echo? You don't have to live inside the blueprint. You can be the architect. Thanks for checking in today. I'd appreciate it if you consider clicking that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. Take good care.
It's funny how the changing of the seasons can make a person feel so all alone. Thoughts born yesterday seem void of reason.